Welcome to the Marshall News and Views Show. I'm Elaine Conyers, and our guest today is Harry Weilage, who is the director of the Marshall Community Services. And you've been on the show before, and you've been in Marshall for a lot of years. And as you know, there's been so much growth in so many areas of our community. And community service is one of the big ones that has really added things to our community, offerings for people from children to older adults and everything. And you have had the leadership of that because you've been here for many years. And it's so interesting to see this kind of growth and then also be a part of it. Now, I think I'll start out with talking about last week. There were three representatives from the State Community Service that came to Marshall, and it was called Program Review. And they interviewed three people from the community, the mayor, Jeff Coleman, who is the president of the school board, and then myself as a member of the city council. And they had so many compliments and good things to say about Marshall and about your leadership and all of this. And they would like to see other communities within our state learn from that, so they're bringing some of that information to other communities, and they would like to see that really build and carry on. Well, as being a member of that for many years, tell us more about it.
Sure. It's my professional organization. It's the Marshall Community Education Association, and for our viewers out there, the City of Marshall and Marshall Public Schools have a joint powers agreement, and probably our citizens don't realize this, but Marshall was one of 16 original communities in the state of Minnesota that applied for community education funding way back in 1970. So we're one of the actual charter members.
Wow.
And so Marshall has always been in good standing. Marshall tends to do things just a little bit differently than other districts, but I can tell you that more districts looking at how we do things here in Marshall, where we do have a joint powers. And what that really means is that instead of having two directors for a recreation and park system or community education, Marshall has that under one director's leadership. The board, as you know, as you serve on it, we have a city liaison, a school district liaison, and then we have our citizens that help us decide what the community wants. So, you know, I don't think it's any big secret that I'm getting ready to retire. And when I had that conversation with Ben and Superintendent Munson, I suggested to them that this would be a good process for us to go through, not so much to pat ourselves on the back, but more or less to review, and you were three of, I believe we interviewed 25, 28 people in the community over those 2 days. And what they were attempting to do and what they were under direction to do is to review programs and policies and talk about the partnership and identify those things that we're doing well, and then also identify those things that we have better opportunities for. We have new programming like after school, our Minority Advocates program, our ABE I mean, there's just so many programs, as you are well aware of, that we have. So it was a great time for that to take place. They'll provide an executive summary. The individuals that were there that day were Doug Spray, former director at Montevideo, who understands the rural piece, but he also was our president at one time in our association. Mike Luby, who was the director at Osseo, and then Heidi Cunningham from Farmington. So we had a nice mix of metro and rural and understanding how we do things here, so that it wasn't a big learning curve for them. And as they went through the process, we really spent about 6 weeks getting ready for that program. So the ever-capable Mary Tate was sending lots of things off to the people, so they did their homework. They understood how we were structured out here. So when they came, they were ready with their information. Then a week ago at our conference, I met with them, and we had kind of a preview of what was going to happen. But the intent of that is to have an executive summary so that the board, our advisory board, the school board and the city council will have a document to review, and when the new hire happens and the new director, he or she, comes to Marshall, they'll actually have a document that they'll be able to review and really hit the ground running.
Yeah,
so very important. I agree, they're good people. They've had a lot of experience on the state level and the national level. So they've seen it all.
Yeah.
And now they saw the piece that we probably do a little differently, and that's the work that we do with businesses and industries and the recruitment. And, you know, we've said this before to your viewers, Marshall's really concentrating on students, young families, and hanging on to retiring professionals from the schools, the medical, whatever, to continue to be that viable community that is a regional center and has all the things that young families want: shopping, entertainment, great education, great health care, and of course your work on the city council over the last few years has helped us make sure that we're in a position to talk that way.
Well, thank you. It was very interesting to hear them share all this information. And then towards the end, then they asked us, you know, well, what do you see as goals for the future? And we said, well, we have tried to intermix some of our new minorities into our community, and we've tried several things. One was the soccer program and so on. We actually started that at the Y to begin with, and just for the new immigrants.
New populations.
And you know, our local kids just liked it so well. All of a sudden now we are filled up. So we're going to try to work to how we can intermingle the groups, which is something that is very, very important because we have a large population now.
Right. Well, and more importantly to that, Elaine, you know, one of the areas that I've been working on closely with the chamber and the city leadership has been, and the university and the school district, is our workforce. Marshall is constantly underemployed statewide. We've been that way for as long as I can remember, the last 10 to 15 years. And for your viewers out there, here, you don't have to go far to see communities that aren't growing. Marshall grows, and this is what the growth looks like, not only in Minnesota, but across the nation. And what we've really spent a lot of time on now is how do we educate, make those new populations feel welcome, and look at the workforce that's already here. So is that important? Well, it's important if we're not growing, and if we don't have the educated workforce, businesses and industries go elsewhere. Then taxes go up. So we're all linked in this, and being a rural community, we don't have the luxury of saying we'll take this, this, this. But what we have been very successful at doing is working together in those partnerships that they reviewed. And I can tell you our programs are full. Have never been this full in my history. And we have some challenges, and those challenges is making sure that we're communicating with our industries on what kind of workforce they need, which we're doing. We just had that workforce conference back here in the fall that helped give us some direction. And then, quite frankly, the biggest challenge facing us is a school referendum. The space, we had this built and we were fine, but nobody said we were going to start growing at 10, 15, 20%. And when you start talking about that, it says, well, you know, that's not our kids. Well, it may not be our kids, but it's our future workforce.
Exactly.
And if we don't have the space for those kids, then people will choose other communities where they can find that kind of education. Because we've said this many times over the years, a family will not give up its educational abilities or its health care opportunities just because of a job. There's plenty of places to find work. And we compete with the Sioux Falls, the Brookings, the Minneapolis, the St. Paul's, and we've got to do what we're doing now to make sure that we're going to be competitive. And that, you know, that's the ice arena. Those are the things that young families are looking for.
Sure, that's right. And we see a lot of cultural development, too, in our community, which I think I mentioned this before. A couple of people have come up to me and said, well, yeah, you're always bragging about Marshall, and it's all about sports. What about cultural things? And I said, just pay attention. It's out there, and it's going to really, really grow. Because, yes, we all like sports, but there are some that would like to go to, art shows and things like that, and that's also really helpful.
And that's been a part of our program as well.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I can remember when I came here, the only thing we had here was a Civil War statue at the county. Now we have 3 murals downtown. We've got talk of 3 more murals coming to the community. The 9/11 sculpture of Mrs. Whitney. We've got the art sculpture and we should talk about that a little bit. We've been interviewing this past 3 weeks. We put an RFP out for the new sculpture to be in front of the Red Baron Arena and Expo Center. That's a year away.
Yeah.
But the RFP is out there, and we had 8 sculptors from Minnesota apply to a committee of which I'm a member of. And I'm here to tell you, it was fabulous to see all of those artists, high quality artists, applying because they've heard about Marshall. And now we're down to, in fact, tomorrow we'll interview the 3rd one. We've chosen 3 from that committee. All 3 of them are nationally known. One of them is currently over in Dubai finishing a project there. The other one's doing a project in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I can't tell you what the 3rd one's doing because he's coming tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll find out. But both of the first 2, Jim Schwartz and Becky Weifels, have been on that tour piece with me. And we walk away and we just go, we can't wait. We can't wait for what that is going to look like out in front. And of course, the entrance to the community with SMSU and the high school is our education recreation corridor, which tells people what we value. And the Mustang new sculpture with the new entrance to the university and the ponds, the little mini and the art sculpture, and then the connection to the Camden Bike Trail. Those are all done to recruit young families and students.
Can I ask you, or I can ask you, but you don't have to answer what the sculpture is going to be?
We have no idea. In fact, the sculpture at this point in time, we've left it that way, is we've given them some direction, like we've done traditional. This is about Marshall in the future. And so it's just a general piece. Those 3 sculptures will be given $1,500 each to put forward a proposal. They'll work with the community to say, what do you think can connect the community? It's about the community spirit, It's really a trilogy. The 9/11 is about celebrating the American spirit. The mural and the Fogarty mural in downtown is about the spirit of sport. And this is about the spirit of the community that voted to do all of these things to invest in itself. So we're going to be just as surprised as everyone else when this comes forward, but we have 3 of Minnesota's renowned sculptors putting that forward. Now, talk to me about culture and sport. We're going to be a place where people are going to come see.
Exactly. And so, like so many of our viewers, they don't know about all this stuff that's going on in the background, but it's there, it's growing, and it's just an outstanding community.
It's keeping a few of us busy.
That's right. Well, you mentioned the Red Baron Arena, and that, of course, is there's a new sign, or there a sign, I should say, going up fairly soon.
Right.
And the doors for that first ice arena will open June, isn't it?
Right now, it's tentative, and hopefully we'll be able to keep it, but June 7th is slated for the grand opening. We're in the month of March now, and the goal is that 95% of the arena will be finished by the end of March. That allows us to finish in April and May the outside landscaping that has to be done, and obviously some commissioning things to make sure that the arena is working. But we are, in fact, taking registrations already for June 1st for the rink that'll be year-round. And We already have people from outside of Marshall that are scheduling ice time in Marshall, just like they do when they come here to play in our basketball and softball and baseball leagues. They'll be coming here to play in our hockey leagues.
Isn't that something? So, and then along with that, the hockey rinks. Let's see, we've got 3 baseball fields that will be open, isn't it? Or is it 2?
4.
4, but only 2 to begin with, right?
No, all 4 will open up. Just the 2 championship fields have lights.
That's what I was.
Right. We already have another field that is lit.
Okay.
And again, we don't need to have lighted fields for one ball game. We have somewhere between 40 teams that play on a consistent basis in the summertime. 3 lighted fields will handle that very well. And so we're not overspending. We're spending money where we know we can bring in the activities as soon as possible. And if it then grows, the infrastructure is in place to add that at a later date.
Sure. Well, it's just amazing, and it's such a different view driving into Marshall than it was for the first 125 years.
Well, and and the other part, and again, I give Roger Madison, our chair of our sports commission, a lot of credit. This was always about economic development. There are those that say it's about a hockey rink. Well, it's about amateur sports. And again, for those viewers that don't know, we're one of 7 amateur sport regional centers in the state of Minnesota. And I can tell you already, tournaments for next year have Fargo and Omaha and Brookings, and that's what this was designed to do, to bring those sports tourism. We just had a basketball tournament in town this last weekend. Rooms were full. Everything was working well. And if I'm not mistaken, there seems to be new business popping out on West Marshall. We have a new coffee, and seems to be there's some property changing hands and some building going on. So, all of those things are about a vibrant community, and the amateur sports piece is what we've done well for the last 20 years, but we needed to take it to the next level if we were going to compete. And I think you know as well as I do, our other communities like Sioux Falls and Mankato and Brookings and Wilmer are all just as active in this area as we are. So either we participate or we say we're not going to do that business. And fortunately, our community agreed with us, voted for the investments. And I'm extremely proud. I think we're delivering exactly what everybody's asked for.
That's right, yeah. And it's very encouraging and gratifying to see that the community is behind us in this, because it doesn't always work that way.
No.
And Marshall hasn't always worked that way.
Well,
I've been here a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just, things change, and it's for the better.
And I understand the change, and again, everybody has to take it in that context. If we weren't going to do this, then what were we going to do? And there weren't a lot of ideas that came forward. One of the reasons we did this is for that 10-year-old to 16-year-old, that when those young parents and those youth come here to play in our facilities, Southwest Minnesota State University looks pretty good to them.
Yeah.
And so it made sense in our strategic plan to do the things that would lift all the economic boats in Marshall, and I think we're on that track.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's good. So, and then some of the other things that are going on too. We've heard a lot about the bike trail, and that is going to be put into full use now this summer.
This summer.
Yeah. And that's quite an accomplishment too. I've been contacted by, especially a group out of the cities that wants to come through Marshall. They go on the Iowa event each year, and so they're all going to come and participate when those bike tours
Already.
start.
Well, and as you know, we've had 2 big bike trips and tours the last 2 years because they've heard about the construction and what we've been doing in Marshall. And this will be the culmination. We're working with the university to have an event in April and really coordinate not only the head end, which will be out at the Amateur Sports Center, but also utilizing the new tunnel and the North Trail that will connect all the way out to Camden. And it's really been well designed, well thought out, and we can have bike races, we can have rad races, we can have running races, we can have walking events, and we can have them all at the same time if we choose to.
Sure.
So it's about letting people know what we have, and then following it up and making it align with our other events.
Right.
It may be the Sounds of Summer, it may be when the college comes back for their opening session, but we've got the things that young people are extremely interested in, and it's interesting because a lot of the same things the young people are interested in, baby boomers are too. So maybe we can hang on to some of us.
Yeah, I think that's very important too. Instead of, when you retire, you move away.
Right.
You might end up in a place you don't. That isn't.
And you have those friends, and I have those friends too that say, you move away and you lose your circle of friends, and that's not a quality of life that should be. So, I know my children seem to think that I'll have the community about right where I need it to be when I retire, so it's close.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, so it's, and then I think we should just touch on that we're going to have a vote coming up, is it April?
May 10th.
Oh, May 10th. That, and certainly that's going to be important because we need to build onto our schools. And it's interesting how fast that need has taken place. I've had Superintendent Munson on the show several times, and a year ago he was telling me we'd have to do grade school, middle school. We won't have to touch the high school. Well, it wasn't long ago, and he said, well, things have changed. Now we have to add on to the high school, too.
Yeah.
And, but it's so important that, that our children can have a good education and smaller classroom numbers instead of having to go to 40, 50 in a class or something.
No, you're right, Elaine. And Scott's done a great job, and Board Chair Chapman has been around for a long time, and he's been a great partner for the city. And I know when you were interviewed together for the event, my colleagues could not get over, Harry, you just don't understand. You just don't see that kind of cooperation between leaders in the community, in a school district, and a city. You're to be commended, and Marshall's to be commended on that level of cooperation. That's why Marshall's where Marshall's at. You and I could name a number of communities. I won't do that, but they fight against each other. And Marshall has been on track for, I know at least in the mayor's term, working very hard to make sure those partnerships work, along with the bike trail, the county partnership. We just went down and down and down about all the partnerships and all of the pluses that came from that. And that truly was the thing that impressed them the most. And I think when the executive summary comes back, they're going to speak to that at great length. But let me just say this about the school referendum. I know it's an investment. Marshall's growing. That tax base will spread that tax dollar out. And our workforce, we need these kids to be successful. Our industries like Track Chair and U.S. Bank and Schwann's, and I go on and on and on, BH Electronics, they all need quality employees. And if we can do the job we're doing, and we have, and we have kids coming back that were little when I first started, they're back and they have a job in Marshall, then we all prosper. And Marshall's successful, and guess what? Then the region's successful. Region's successful, all of this stuff keeps working the way we all want it to, because it's a great quality of life, as you well know, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
No, that's right. And it is amazing to see how many of those kids that graduated a few years ago, and so many of them, like you mentioned, are coming back then to live.
And they come back. Remember when it was, we don't have a community celebration? Now what is Sounds of Summer is what, 5 days long? It seems like it's the whole week. And then SMSU comes in with their barbecue and their event. And more and more of those young people are coming back for the reunions. And
They
I know
plan them around those events.
I know you get the comments, and I get the comments all the time. They can't believe how Marshall has changed for the better. And has grown, and more things are available than when they were here just a short 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So very positive, and if we can keep that going, kudos to Marshall. Kudos to Marshall.
Yep, that's right. So it's it's been an interesting journey, hasn't it?
It has.
That kind of progress.
It has, and I'm always intrigued because my family and my wife's family, Jane, is from the Redwood Morton area. So to have a chance to come back in our area when we had the chance, to have the Glenn Madkeys, and to be a Morton boy and come back and be able to do things in our area and our region, and also see the partnerships that have developed with the surrounding communities. For that has been very rewarding for my career, and one that I hope continues. I think it will.
I think it will. So it's great, and so we're and it's so nice now to finally we're seeing that progress too. We talked about it for a long time, and a lot of people didn't even believe us because we were just dreaming. But the dream happening.
They were somewhat skeptical, and to dream big, that's part of it too, and that probably fuels the energy to make sure that it happens. I've always said, if it's an idea that's on the table in Marshall and it gets shot at from all the different directions, it's still standing at the end of the day. Pretty good idea.
That's right.
And this isn't the only one on partnerships. Marshall's done a lot of great things in leadership in the county, city, and school district, where we have people coming in and saying, the thing that impresses us the most is the ability for your community leaders to get along and to decide on what the priorities are. And I think we've all benefited from that conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's great. So anything else you'd like to add about the future? We've kind of covered the past now. But
well,
any ideas out there for the future?
I don't know if I'll have a chance to be on more shows with you in the future, but we both know that Ben Martig has accepted another position. Just a treasure in working with Ben over these last 7 years. He's of that age where he could have been my oldest son. Certainly we haven't had that relationship, but just to have his youthful energy and give the fresh eyes of what Marshall needed to be competitive. And also the skill set on moving things forward in a judicious way and a fiscally responsible way. I truly want to acknowledge that I appreciate Ben's leadership. I appreciate his friendship. And I really, truly wish him and his family nothing but the best.
That's right. And I just have to share this. When we did the last review of evaluation of his work, and we bragged, and then I said, "And don't you ever dare leave us." And he said, "No, I won't." I've reminded him of that.
Crossed. His fingers must have been crossed.
But we knew, actually, many of us knew that from the beginning when he came. We won't be able to keep him because he'll do things for our community, but he will move on because of his abilities.
Right. And he sets us up. And he sets us up for the next person that is going to come in. And Marshall is a much different place. We're in a better place to recruit. And it'll be interesting to see the next 10 years. I'll make sure I'm around to see that. Good Lord willing.
Right. Well, again, it was great to have you on the show again, and I'm sure we'll have you on before you actually retire, right?
All right, Elaine.
And actually, you're going to stay in town. You may not really be retired in a sense.
No, we're sticking around. I've got that sculpture piece to finish. I got some fundraising to do for Memorial Park, so I'm not, but then I can full-time to those two endeavors.
Okay. Well, thank you again for coming, and thank you for all the work that you have done for us in the past, for the vision and the know-how to get things done. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.